Hello guys, welcome back to the start of a new series, the first video in a new series where I look at the past games from the past NHL nights, look at the best storylines, look at the best games, look at the best plays from that night, and of course we'll be discussing most of the highlights. Now at the start of the new NHL season, there was some storylines that are a little bit too small for me to make dedicated videos on, and most of those just small storylines go throughout the NHL and go throughout the games that are played. So in this series, I'll be making videos and topics about the stuff that I wouldn't normally talk about, some of the smaller stuff, but ultimately very important stuff throughout the NHL. Now, I'm not sure if this will be a daily thing. It'll probably be every other day where this series happens, but it's going to be a good series to go throughout the whole year, to talk about the storylines that I don't usually talk about on this channel, and of course, throughout the NHL games, I'll be reviewing some of them, and of course, most of the Dallas Stars games too. Now, one of the things that I really wanted to talk about was Rasmus Dahlin. Of course, the Buffalo Sabres just got their home opener last night. They played the Boston Bruins. They ended up losing 4-0. It was an ugly game for them. Boston was obviously the much better team throughout that game, but my main storyline, in my opinion, is Rasmus Dahlin's debut. Of course, he's played preseason games. He's been in a Sabres uniform for quite a while now, but this is of course, the first NHL game for him, and the first NHL game for a couple of other Buffalo Sabres players as well, and ultimately, while I think the Buffalo Sabres will be better, it was a disappointing night for a lot of guys. While it seemed like Dahlin had a decent night overall, it seemed like he made some good plays, made some quick passes, was overall very solid. He just was not able to get any points. The Buffalo Sabres were not able to score any goals, and it seems like the team didn't gel completely off the bat. So for the opener right now, Rasmus Dahlin, while he looked good, the Buffalo Sabres did not really, and the Boston Bruins definitely took advantage. While, of course, the first overall pick in the 2018 draft had a solid debut, it wasn't what it was expected to be. I thought Buffalo would win this game, honestly. I thought they'd come out strong, but the offense wasn't there. They weren't able to convert any chances. It just seems like the Boston Bruins were stomping them throughout the whole night. So for Boston, it was a great game, and for Buffalo, it was pretty disappointing. Now, the Sabres' next game is tomorrow against the New York Rangers, so that'll likely be a much easier time for the Buffalo Sabres to maybe score a few goals, and hey, maybe Rasmus Dahlin getting his first point. That'd be a great storyline, and hopefully it happens sooner than later. Now, another big thing to happen last night was the game between the Washington Capitals and the Pittsburgh Penguins. There wasn't like one storyline that really stood out, but the game in general was craziness. The Capitals ended up losing 6-7 in overtime against the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Penguins getting their first win of the season in their first game, and it was just a crazy game overall. I didn't see it live, but I was able to see a lot of the highlights, a lot of the game, and a big chunk of it. And it was just an offensive explosion from both teams. It seemed like both goaltenders were kind of pedestrian. Of course, that defense was not very good on either side. Now, the Washington Capitals, of course, were on a back-to-back. They played Boston 2 days ago for their season opener, so they had a little bit, they didn't really have too much rest while the Pittsburgh Penguins were playing their first game, and that overtime thriller, that overtime goal by Letang really topped it off there. It was an offensive explosion by both teams, honestly, and it seemed like the Capitals were playing their first game. It didn't seem like they were too tired, especially offensively. It was a very good performance by both teams, and with that overtime game, Pittsburgh versus Washington, great rivalry there. It would have been a great game to watch live, and honestly, 7-6 in overtime. It was a crazy offensive explosion, and probably one of the higher scoring games we'll see for the start of the season. Now, even though the Washington Capitals lost this game in overtime, they've scored 13 goals in the first 2 games of the season. So they're off to a hot start offensively. They've obviously been scoring a ton of goals. So it's going to be interesting to see how they develop in the next couple of weeks, how they keep playing, and if they can continue this surge of offense. It's not likely if they keep at that, 6.5 point pace, but honestly, what they've done so far has been straight magical on the offensive side of the ice. So while I don't think they'll continue this offensive resurgence, the 2018 Stanley Cup champions are off to a good start offensively, and that's great to see for them. Again, they're coming off that Stanley Cup championship, so people are kind of worried about their play throughout this whole season, but what we've seen so far, at least offensively, there's a lot of hope in Washington, and for maybe a back-to-back to happen. The offense so far has been amazing, and probably will continue to be amazing throughout the next couple of weeks. Now, another game that happened that was surprisingly close between the two teams was Sens versus Blackhawks. Now, on paper, this was obviously the worst game of the night. I mean, of course, Blackhawks, who are not looking to look like a good team. The Sens, who a lot of people are expecting to be the worst team in the league. On paper, this matchup shouldn't have been really anything of worth, but it actually was a pretty decent matchup, and on paper, a pretty good game. Now, the Blackhawks won 4-3 in overtime, but honestly, it was a good game between the two, and and we saw some goals, and some pretty ones at that. Most notably, rookie Max LaJoie for the Ottawa Senators had an excellent one-timer for a goal. That's probably my favorite goal from that game. Of course, the Chicago Blackhawks, Patrick Kane ended up topping it in 4-3 in overtime with a beautiful backhander on Craig Anderson. But honestly, I'm just going to give a standing ovation to both the Blackhawks and the Senators for not putting up a terrible game, making it close and making it somewhat watchable. Now, a game that I thought was going to be a much more closer than it actually was the Jets versus Blues game last night. The Jets ended up winning 5-1, but it was a very interesting game because the Blues really did outplay the Jets, but the Jets, of course, were able to convert on their chances or be much better on the shots. It was really not a close game throughout. It seemed like the Jets always had the advantage, but really the Blues were a much better team throughout. The Winnipeg Jets were outshot pretty heavily throughout the whole game. Connor Hellebuyck was very, very solid. He made some great saves, and while I have some concerns about him repeating what he did last season, he has shown great things so far in that one game versus the Blues. He was fantastic, and was one of the main reasons why Winnipeg won that game. Now, the offense for Winnipeg, it was decent, but they were able to score on their chances. They were able to convert on their chances, unlike St. Louis, and Kyle Connor was amazing. Blake Wheeler with that good tipping goal. Mark Scheifele was fantastic again. The Jets offense was very, very solid. The Blues defense did a decent job, but the Winnipeg Jets were just able to score a lot more than the Blues were able to. And while I don't think Jake Allen was bad, he didn't have the greatest night either. He made a couple of good saves, a couple of fantastic saves even, but again, allowing 5 goals on not a lot of shots from the Winnipeg Jets. You'd like to see a lot better for the St. Louis Blues and Jake Allen if they are going to make the playoffs. They got to look a lot better than this, and they got to actually score on their chances this time. Now, the last game of the day was the Flyers versus the Golden Knights, which was somewhat it was a weird game throughout, but the Golden Knights ended up taking the lead early. Jonathan Marchessault getting the goal to start out, but then the Flyers came out rolling. 5 unanswered goals after that, and the Flyers just looked fantastic. Offensively, they were able to score. Fleury was a little bit pedestrian, but the Vegas Golden Knights defense didn't do him many favors there. And overall, the Flyers just came out scoring after that Marchessault goal. They were able to really get going, and after that, it was really no chance for Vegas. Even though Bellemare did get a second goal, the Flyers were really the much better team. I'm going to give full credit where full credit is due. Brian Elliott had an amazing game for the versus the Vegas Golden Knights. He was fantastic. He made quite a few great saves, and while the Philadelphia Flyers defense was very, very solid, Brian Elliott was very, very solid as well. I really liked his debut for the Philadelphia Flyers, and of course, while there's still concerns about that goaltending for the whole season, he definitely had a great game and gave me some hope for the Philadelphia Flyers with that goaltending issue. If Brian Elliott can play like he did versus Vegas throughout the whole year, Flyers will be a very good team. And to me, while I think the Vegas offense looked decent, the main concern for me is that defense. Marc-Andre Fleury had an okay game. He wasn't the greatest, but that defense was pretty trash. There were a couple of goals that just went off defensemen's skates, and while it is unlucky play, you'd like to see that not happen on the defense. So, for me, the Vegas Golden Knights defense has to make some improvements. Of course, Nate Schmidt being suspended for 20 games, that is a problem for them. So they are going to have to find a way to go around that, but so far, it hasn't looked great for them. Now, I saved the best game for last, and I'm going to talk about the Dallas Stars versus Coyotes game. And this game, it was fun. It was entertaining. I really liked it. And of course, as a Dallas Stars fan, them winning 3-0 was a very good treat. Of course, young Miro Heiskanen making his NHL debut alongside of Rupe Hintz. Both guys look fantastic, I'd say. Miro Heiskanen had an excellent first period. Was probably the Stars' best defenseman throughout that first period, and was very, very solid throughout the rest of the game, too. He really did make an impression on me. He made some great passes, was one of the main reasons why that second goal was scored, and honestly, he was fantastic. He's a great transition guy. He made some great line rushes, and while he wasn't the most noticeable defenseman out there, he was making all those smart decisions, and at age 19, you really want to see that from your young defenseman. And overall, I really liked what the Stars' defense was going for. I thought Klingberg was very solid. Offensively, he was fantastic, but defensively, there were some concerns there. Lindell made some excellent passes, was very, very solid. Of course, Miro Heiskanen had a great debut, in my opinion. He was fantastic, both offensively, defensively. Mark Mafat was pretty unnoticeable, but at that stage, at age 33, I think I'd take that. Now, the pairing of Connor Carrick and, of course, Roman Polak was surprising. They were actually not bad at all. Now, of course, you got the pairing of Connor Carrick and Roman Polak. And of course, Julius Honka was scratched for this game. And I'm going to be honest, that pairing was actually pretty solid. Carrick was very solid offensively. He was okay too defensively, I'd say. Gave up a couple of chances, but still, he is young. With Roman Polak, I'm going to be honest, he was actually okay. He was decent. Roman Polak was actually decent, and I think I'll take that for him. He was okay defensively. He didn't really make too many bad mistakes. I didn't really notice him a whole lot. And offensively, he made some passes. And while I think that, of course, I'd rather see Honka in there, at least if Roman Polak is to play, at least he played decent. I'm going to give him credit for that. Now, I really thought that Ben Bishop was fantastic in his debut, of course, getting the shutout. But the Arizona Coyotes did outshoot the Dallas Stars by a little bit there. And I thought Ben Bishop was very, very solid. He made quite a few good saves. No highlight reel saves or anything, but he was very, very solid throughout the whole night. And definitely gives me confidence that he'll be consistent throughout the whole year. And of course, consistency is goaltending was one of the main things that we were lacking last season. So hopefully we can get it this season and of course make the playoffs. On the Arizona Coyotes side of things, I did like what their offense was cooking up. I really loved what Brandon Perlini brought. He was fantastic. Clayton Keller had a great game. Stepan was solid. Hinostroza had a decent game. But overall, the Coyotes just had some opportunities, but were not able to hit the net very much. So I feel like they had a lot of opportunities that just went wide, or they weren't able to get it on net. And overall, it was kind of just fail after fail for the Arizona Coyotes. On the defensive side of things, it was a little bit rough. For Antti Raanta, while I do think that he could have had a better game, he did have a couple of weak goals. I will give him that. I still have confidence in him being a very, very solid goaltender, but this first game was not giving me too much confidence for the rest of the year. And of course, it's only one game, but I feel like the Arizona Coyotes definitely disappointed in this game. They just were not able to convert. The defense was not able to really shut it down like they probably should have. The Arizona Coyotes, while I think they'll make the playoffs, did have a disappointing opener. And of course, while there's still 81 games left for both of these teams, they didn't give me very much confidence. The Arizona Coyotes, I still think will make the playoffs, but it is worrisome. But of course, the Stars ended up getting the win nonetheless, and of course, that makes me happy every single time. So I also want to hear from you guys. Let me know down below, what did you think of the games for November 4th, for October 4th? What do you think of the best plays? What do you think of the highlights? And what do you think of the games that you watched last night in the NHL? And of course, let me know what you think of this new series. Do you like it? Do you want to see it continue? And what do you want to see me cover in the future? But that's great for you guys. If you guys did enjoy, make sure you like and subscribe again. Tell me down below what you think of this new series and what I covered in today's video. And I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.